Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Liz if we haven't met before. Hey, how's it going? And in today's video, I have some Dollar Tree Winter Wonderland themed DIYs for you. So let's go ahead and jump right in.
A huge thank you to Gamehouse Original Stories for sponsoring today's video. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let's jump into our first DIY. For this DIY, we are going to take one of these sled signs from the Dollar Tree. I think this is so cute as it is, but I wanted to give it a little makeover. So I'm going to start by removing the back, which I have learned are now called runners. Thank you to my subscribers. But I am going to remove those. You don't technically have to do that, but it would just be easier for me with the project that I'm doing to take them off. I'm going to grab one of these bags that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to take the top portion of the sled and I am going to trace around the bag. I just cut the front of the bag off and then laid my sled piece down and then traced around it and cut it out. Now I'm just going to use a glue stick to attach this. Now because this bag is a lot thicker, you probably want to use something a little stronger than a glue stick. I was having some issues keeping the sides stuck down, so some Mod Podge. And I feel like since, again, this material is a lot thicker, that you shouldn't have too many issues with the material kind of wrinkling up, which is why I steer away from Mod Podge a lot of the time, but I'm trying to figure it out. You guys have given me lots of good tips and tricks. But for this, I just put my glue stick down on there. And then for the runner part, I'm going to go through with some Waverly chalk paint. And I gave the parts that you're going to see a good 2 to 3 coats to make sure that it's all nice and covered up. Made sure that that was completely dry. And then I'm going to add some hot glue to the sides. And then I'm going to stick my top portion of my sled right back down like it was before. Now I'm going to take a couple pieces of a Christmas pick that I believe I got from Hobby Lobby. I just have a huge stash of Christmas picks and I'm tearing them all apart. So that's what I did. I'm just going to cut a couple pieces off of a pick and hot glue them down to the top of the sled. Now I wanted a bow, but I didn't really want a ribbon bow for this. So I'm going to grab some cream colored twine and I'm going to make a bow by holding the twine in between my thumb and index finger, and I am going to wrap it around just like that a good maybe 10 to 15 times. I'll cut the ends off so that the tails are nice and long, and then I'll grab an excess piece of twine. I'll wrap it around the middle, and then I'm going to tie a knot right there so everything stays in place. And then I wanted the middle to be a little bit thicker, so I did take that twine from the middle and I wrapped it around the bow several times going both ways, and then I just tied those in a double knot, and then all I'm going to do is hot glue it down to the middle. And then I wanted to add a little bit more detail to my greenery at the top. So I took these white berries that were a part of another pick and I just started hot gluing them down to the greenery. And then last but not least, I'm going to take some nautical rope. I pulled it apart into a different section so that it was smaller because the full nautical rope piece would not fit inside of there. So I just thread that through the 2 holes at the top. I tie a double knot on each side, and this is just going to be the little hanger for the sled. And that is it. I think this DIY turned out super cute, and it only cost me maybe a little over $2. For this DIY, I'm going to take this Enjoy the Little Things calendar from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take the December one that says Let It Snow, and I thought this would be perfect for this kind of winter wonderland theme I had going on here. I'm going to take one of these shadow boxes, again from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to remove the hanger from the back, the little cat piece that was on the front, and then I'm going to take that Let It Snow calendar piece. I drew some lines that were a little bit larger than the Let It Snow kind of gold frame box that you see there. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to cut this out too small, so I cut it out a little bit bigger. I'm going to pop the backing out of the frame from the sign, and then I'm going to use a glue stick to adhere my paper down. Now, I did cut out a piece of white cardstock and glued that down first because the calendar is pretty thin. I didn't want those little paws kind of peeking through the calendar piece. So I glued the cardstock down, and then I glued the calendar piece down to the cardstock. And then I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife to clean up all the edges from where I cut it out a little bit bigger than the square. Now I'm going to just adhere it back to my frame using some hot glue in the corners. And that's it for this DIY. You have a super cute and simple Let It Snow sign. For this DIY, I am going to take one of these long planks of wood that you can now get at the Dollar Tree and one of these 1x2 pieces of wood that you can also get at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to start by removing the twine hanger from the top, and then I'm going to take some wood filler and fill in those holes at the top of my plank piece. Now I am going to kind of measure out where I want my white paint to go because this is going to be a rustic snowman. And so I just kind of measured how far down I want his face to be and his hat to be. And I'm going to take some Waverly white chalk paint and I'm just going to go over the bottom half with just one coat of paint. I don't mind if there are pieces kind of peeking through of that natural wood because I wanted this to be more rustic. And then for the top half, I am going to go in with my Waverly chalk paint in black. Now for the brim part of the hat for the snowman with that 1x2 wood piece, I'm just going to take some Waverly Wax and Antique and I just give the front and all the sides a really good coat. Next, for the carrot nose, I'm going to take one of these tall pillar candles from the Dollar Tree. I've done this with a couple candles before in the past, and I think that they all turned out really fun. So I'm just going to cut off a piece towards the top with the top of the candle as the point of the nose. And I just trimmed it down to however big that I wanted the carrot nose to be. And then I'm going to take a utility knife and I'm just going to go through and rough the candle up. I'm going to go and shave off all the sides so it's not so perfect and round looking. I'm going to give it a whole bunch of indents all over so it just looks like it's been through some days. So that it doesn't look so perfect and it looks like a carrot where it has all the indents and the scratches and everything like that. I'm just going to go through and do that with the utility knife. Once I've got that all done, I'm going to take some pumpkin chalk paint from Waverly and I'm going to give the nose a good 2 coats. After that's dry, I'm going to take my Waverly Wax and Antique and I'm going to make the nose look a little dirty and make sure that it gets in all the cracks and crevices. And I just took a paper towel and just kind of rubbed this all over the nose. And then to assemble my pieces, I'm just going to take some hot glue. I'm going to add my hat on just at a tilt. And then I'm going to take this scarf from the Dollar Tree, which is actually perfect for this DIY. And I'm going to cut a piece down at the bottom. I'm going to make sure that I get those little fringy ends in there. And I just went maybe halfway up the scarf and then I cut that piece off, and that's what I'm going to use for the scarf around the snowman. So I'm just going to take my scarf piece, wrap it around the snowman, and then I tie a double knot and I hide away that other second end just by tucking it up and underneath the scarf, and then I trim down the fringe at the end so it's not too long. And then lastly, I'm just going to hot glue his nose in place, and you have this adorable rustic snowman.
A huge thank you to Gamehouse Original Stories for sponsoring this part of today's video. If you guys are anything like me and you're waiting for paint to dry constantly with all the crafting that you do, I know I do. I try to speed it up as much as I can, but sometimes you gotta wait for the spray paint to dry. So while I'm doing that, I am going to be playing Delicious World.
So in this game, you're going to follow Emily's journey to fulfill her lifelong dream of becoming a chef. You get to follow her all over the world, serve local dishes, learn new recipes. I think that this is such a fun game because you're trying to cook all the food, put all the right ingredients on it before you give it to the customer. It's a really fun, time-challenging game.
The thing that I like the most is that this has a ton of stories behind it, so it's almost like a little Netflix series, a little rom-com. So you get the fun of the game, plus you get this enthralling story of romance and comedy and, you know, career paths, so many different storylines that you're watching, which I just think is really fun.
Emily will have new friendships, meet new people, even have a little secret romance going on. So not only do you get to play the fun game, you get to watch the fun stories behind it. Plus, the themes change up for the holidays. Emily is currently wearing her Halloween costume. There will be spooky restaurants and even a scary event with the side story about a prisoner on the loose, which I think is really fun. I can't wait to see the other holiday themes and stories that they do for the rest of the year.
So again, a huge thank you to Gamehouse Original Stories for sponsoring this part of the video. If you guys want to check out Delicious World and download it for free, I will have the app links in my description box where you can click them. Get playing. Let me know which your favorite restaurants are. Let me know which part of the story you get to, because I think it's really fun. Let's talk about it down in the comments. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our next DIY.
For this DIY, I'm going to take 2 tag signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. It doesn't have to be the summer ones. It can be really about anything. They always have these shapes out in signs for every season. And then I'm going to take this Dollar Tree vinyl paper, and it's this pretty buffalo check, which I thought was absolutely perfect. If you can't find this, you could also use buffalo check scrapbook paper, but I just thought this was perfect for this DIY, so I just stuck one of my tags down on top of my vinyl and then traced around it, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Once it's all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing, and then I'm just going to stick my vinyl to the back of my sign. And then any excess that's left over, I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and trim up the ends. Now for my other tag sign, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in silver lining, and I just gave it probably about 2 good coats. I wanted to make sure everything was nice and covered up. Once that's drying, I'm going to take these little ice skates that I got from the Dollar Tree. They're really, really cute. They come in a pack of 2. But the only issue I had is that they are going opposite directions, and I wanted them to face the same way. So I'm going to have to flip one of them over onto the back. I wanted to make sure that the back was nice and flush to the sign. So I am removing one of the snowflakes from the ice skate so that I don't have it only hanging on by that piece, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to go through and paint both of the ice skates white. I just gave it 1 good coat of white Waverly chalk paint. And then I'm going to paint the snowflake and the blades of the skates in black. And again, because we're using the back portion of the other ice skate, I just painted the whole thing white and then the blades black, and then obviously I don't have a snowflake to worry about painting for that one. And then I'm just going to glue my ice skates together, again, making sure they're going the same way because, you know, you've painted the back of the other one. You're going to just hot glue them together, and I just kind of made sure that the holes at the top matched up to each other. And then I'm just going to hot glue the entire thing down to my sign. I'm going to take a piece of burlap ribbon and I'm just going to hot glue this around the back, making sure that I'm pulling nice and tight so that my ribbon has no bumps or waves at the front. Everything is nice and tight to the sign. And then I'm going to take a piece of some buffalo check ribbon, but I needed to make sure that it was smaller than the burlap ribbon that I just put down. So I did cut the buffalo check ribbon down a bit, and then I'm just going to hot glue this right on top of the burlap ribbon. Once that's on there, I'm going to assemble my two signs together. I just took some hot glue and I just placed this right on top of my buffalo check sign. Now I'm going to take a piece of twine for the bow at the top of the ice skate. I just wrapped some twine around my thumb and index finger, and then I'm just going to take an excess piece of twine around the middle, tie a double knot, and then hot glue the bow to the top of my ice skate. Now for the top of this sign, I am going to cut down some ribbon and I am going to make a big burlap bow. So the way that I do this, which there's probably an easier way, but this is just my take. I'm going to take a piece of ribbon and hot glue the ends together, making a loop. I'm going to do that twice, but the second one is going to be slightly smaller than the first. After I have those two loops, I'm going to cut another piece for the tails. I'm just going to fold the ribbon in half, kind of figure out how long I want my tails to be, and then I will cut that off, and then I will just layer everything together. The smallest loop on top, then the biggest loop in the middle, and the tails on the bottom. I'll take a piece of twine and I will just put that on top, wrap it around the back and tie a double knot and have the ribbon all squished up in the middle. Now again, just taking a couple pieces of some excess Christmas picks that I have, I'm just going to hot glue that to the middle, and then I will hot glue my bow right to the top, and that is it for this DIY.
And that's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what your favorite project was in the comments down below. Also keep an eye out on my website, More Decal and Decor. I will be launching my winter and Christmas craft kits this week. This is just the first release of them. Throughout the month of November, I will be doing a lot of ornaments and DIY signs and all sorts of fun things like that. So keep an eye on my website. It's always linked in my description box below if you're ever interested. I will have the first release of my winter and Christmas tier tray craft kits on my website this week. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe before you guys leave, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.